Bruce Lee weighed just 63 kilograms and stood 5 feet 7 inches tall. Yet the power of his punches was often compared to that of heavyweight boxing champion Muhammad Ali. His legendary 1-inch punch could send a grown man stumbling backward and even break wooden boards. It was a feat that amazed the world. To his fans, Bruce Lee wasn't just a martial artist. He was a phenomenon, the Michael Jackson of martial arts. Although he played the leading role in only 4 films, almost every action hero who came after him dreamed of becoming like Bruce Lee. Many of today's biggest action stars once looked up to him, and some even appeared as extras in productions connected to him. Bruce Lee lived for only 32 years, but during that short life, he achieved what many people spend a lifetime chasing. Then, at the height of his fame, he died suddenly, leaving behind one of Hollywood's greatest mysteries. Today, there are very few people in the world who don't know the name Bruce Lee. This is the story of the martial arts king of Hong Kong. Just 2 facts are enough to show how unbelievably hard he trained. Fact number 1, Bruce Lee's punching bag was heavier than the ones used by heavyweight boxers. Despite weighing far less than Muhammad Ali, the explosive force of his punches was often said to rival the boxing legends. Fact number 2, Bruce Lee could perform push-ups using only 1 thumb and 1 finger on a single hand, a feat that even many elite athletes today would struggle to accomplish. Bruce Lee was a martial arts master, a fearless street fighter from Hong Kong. But long before he became a global icon, he wrote one simple goal on a piece of paper. He wrote that one day, he would become a Hollywood superstar. Not just a superstar, he wanted to become the highest paid actor in the world. At the time, it sounded impossible, but Bruce Lee never believed in the word impossible. Bruce Lee's dream wasn't born out of nowhere. It came from watching his father. People often say that children don't learn from what their parents tell them. They learn from what they see them do. Bruce Lee's father was an actor. He had traveled to San Francisco, California, hoping to build a successful acting career. But despite all his efforts, he never became more than a stage actor. Then in 1940, Bruce Lee was born. Just 3 months after his birth, the family returned to Hong Kong. Unfortunately, his father couldn't achieve great success there either. But one thing never changed: his love for acting. As a child, Bruce Lee often accompanied his father to film sets. Watching actors perform in front of the cameras fascinated him. Before long, he got his first opportunity. At just 6 years old, Bruce Lee appeared in his very first film. That was only the beginning. He continued acting throughout his childhood, and by the age of 18 he had already appeared in around 20 Chinese films. But acting wasn't his only passion. Bruce Lee also loved dancing. He even entered Hong Kong's famous Cha-Cha Dance Championship and won the competition. Everything seemed to be going well, but there was one problem. The Hong Kong Bruce Lee grew up in was very different from the modern city we know today. The Second World War had only recently ended. The city was struggling with poverty, unemployment, and crime. Street gangs were everywhere. Fights had become a part of everyday life. In that environment, learning martial arts wasn't just a hobby. It was often a necessity. Bruce Lee was no exception. He frequently got into street fights. His father realized something had to change, so he made an important decision. He enrolled Bruce Lee in martial arts training under a respected master, Ip Man. It was under Ip Man's guidance that Bruce Lee learned the techniques and discipline of Wing Chun Kung Fu. But instead of staying away from fights, Bruce Lee became involved in even more of them. Some of those fights became so serious that the police had to step in. Eventually, the police gave Bruce Lee's father a final warning. If Bruce Lee got into another street fight, he would be arrested. That warning deeply worried his father. After all, he had sent Bruce Lee to learn martial arts for self-defense, not for fighting in the streets. So he made another life-changing decision. He sent Bruce Lee to America, hoping a new environment would keep him away from trouble. Little did anyone know that decision would completely change the course of Bruce Lee's life forever. America was a completely new world for Bruce Lee. To support himself, he worked during the day and attended school at the same time. In the evenings, he also worked at a restaurant to earn enough money to cover his expenses. But something interesting began to happen. People were often more impressed by Bruce Lee's martial arts skills than by anything else. Chinese Kung Fu had already gained a reputation around the world, and many people wanted to learn it from him. Bruce Lee was now mature, enough to recognize an opportunity. Instead of simply teaching for free, he turned his skills into a business, began teaching Kung Fu at schools and training centers. It wasn't long before one of his students completely changed his life. Her name was Linda Emery. Linda admired Bruce Lee, and Bruce Lee admired Linda. Before long, the two fell in love and decided to get married. But there was one major obstacle. Linda was American, while Bruce Lee was Chinese. At that time, interracial marriages were still looked down upon by many families. Many American families did not approve of such marriages, and many Chinese families felt the same way, but love rarely follows. Society's rules. Bruce Lee and Linda chose to marry in court. They believed that if they kept it quiet, no one would find out, but they had overlooked one important detail. According to the law, before a marriage certificate was officially issued, the court published the marriage notice in the local newspaper. Neither Bruce Lee nor Linda knew about this. The moment the notice appeared, their secret was no longer a secret. Soon, Linda's family learned about the marriage. They were extremely upset. But eventually, they realized there was no way to change what had already happened. In time, they accepted the relationship. Bruce Lee's family was also unhappy at first. Eventually, they accepted the marriage as well, but surprisingly, the people who opposed Bruce Lee the most were not his relatives. They were his fellow Chinese. The reason had nothing to do with his marriage. It was because Bruce Lee had opened a Kung Fu school in Oakland, California. Many members of the Chinese community believed that Kung Fu was a cultural treasure and that it should never be taught to people outside the Chinese community. For centuries, these techniques had been closely guarded. They demanded that Bruce Lee stop teaching non-Chinese students, but Bruce Lee refused. According to Chinese martial arts tradition, his decision led to a challenge. Bruce Lee was told to face one of their finest Kung Fu masters. The terms were simple. If Bruce Lee won, could continue teaching anyone he wanted. But if he lost, he would have to stop teaching outsiders forever. For Bruce Lee, there was only one answer. He accepted the challenge without hesitation. The challenge match began. Bruce Lee faced one of the most respected Kung Fu masters chosen by those who opposed him. The rules were clear. If Bruce Lee won, he would be free to teach Kung Fu to anyone, regardless of their nationality. But if he lost, he would have to close his school to non-Chinese students forever. Bruce Lee wasn't intimidated. For him, this wasn't just another fight, it was a fight for his beliefs. The match started, and within just 3 minutes, Bruce Lee defeated his opponent. He had won. He had earned the right to continue teaching. Whoever he wanted, most people would have celebrated a victory like that. But Bruce Lee wasn't satisfied. In fact, he was disappointed. Why? Because he believed the fight had lasted far too long. In Bruce Lee's mind, a martial artist of his level should have ended the match in just a few seconds. Taking 3 whole minutes, it felt like a weakness. Instead of celebrating his victory, he began analyzing his own performance. He asked himself one question: how can I become even better? And from that day forward, he trained harder than ever. Before, Bruce Lee turned his disappointment into motivation. He refused to let himself stay at the same level. His daily routine became almost unbelievable. Every single day, he threw around 2,000 punches. He ran nearly 10 kilometers. He cycled for almost 24 kilometers, and that was only part of his training. According to his wife, Linda, Bruce Lee became completely obsessed with improving himself, whether he was sitting, standing, eating, or resting. His mind was always focused on becoming stronger. Sometimes, in the middle of an ordinary conversation, an idea would suddenly come to him. He would immediately stop what he was doing, rush away, and test a new movement or a different fighting angle. Nothing mattered more to him than perfecting his martial arts. But among all of Bruce Lee's incredible abilities, one technique amazed people. More than anything else, it was called the one-inch punch. In 1964, Bruce Lee attended the Long Beach International Karate Championships in California. It was there that he introduced his extraordinary skills to a much larger audience. People witnessed two demonstrations that left them completely stunned. The first demonstration, Bruce Lee performed push-ups using only 2 fingers. The audience could hardly believe what they were seeing. The second demonstration was even more unbelievable. Bruce Lee stood just 1 inch away from a volunteer, without taking a step back at ease, without swinging his arm. He delivered a punch from only 1 inch away. The impact sent the volunteer stumbling backward across the floor. The crowd was left speechless. This became known around the world as Bruce Lee's one-inch punch. Even today, many martial artists and scientists continue to study how he generated so much power from such a short distance. The secret wasn't in his arm alone. Bruce Lee generated force from the ground. The power began in his feet, traveled through his legs, moved through his hips and torso, and exploded through his fist at the perfect moment. Years of relentless practice allowed him to perform a technique that seemed almost impossible. To this day, the one-inch punch remains one of the most legendary demonstrations in martial arts history, and Bruce Lee was only 24 years old. By then, people from all over the world wanted to learn from him. By this time, Bruce Lee had become one of the most respected martial artists in America. Many martial arts champions trained with him, while others proudly called themselves his students. Among those students were experts from different fighting styles. Bruce Lee never believed that a single martial art had all the answers. Instead, he studied everything he could. He spent countless hours reading books, experimenting with techniques, and learning from his own experience. Eventually, he developed a completely new fighting philosophy. He called it Jeet Kune. The name means the way of the intercepting fist. It wasn't simply another martial art. It was Bruce Lee's own philosophy of combat. He combined techniques from Wing Chun, boxing, fencing, wrestling, and several other fighting styles. His goal wasn't to follow tradition. His goal was simple: to use whatever worked best in a real fight. Bruce Lee believed that martial arts should never become trapped by rigid rules. Instead, a fighter should adapt to every situation. Only a few of his closest students were allowed to learn the complete system of Jeet Kune Do as Bruce Lee continued teaching. His dream was slowly coming closer. Then an unexpected opportunity arrived. In 1965, Bruce Lee received an invitation to audition for 20th Century Fox. How did that happen? It all began at one of his martial arts demonstrations. A man who worked with 20th Century Fox happened to be in the audience. He watched Bruce Lee's incredible performance and was deeply impressed. After returning to the studio, he spoke highly of Bruce Lee to the producers. His recommendation was enough. Bruce Lee was invited to audition, although he wasn't selected for that particular project. The audition wasn't a waste. Several producers and a few Hollywood studios had finally begun to notice him. A year later, that small opportunity led to something much bigger. A television series called The Green Hornet was looking for an actor to play the character Kato. Bruce Lee got the role. It wasn't the lead role, but it was his first major break in American television. For audiences, Kato quickly became one of the most memorable characters in the entire series. However, Bruce Lee's journey in Hollywood was only beginning. And almost immediately, he ran into 2 major problems. The first problem surprised everyone. Bruce Lee was simply too fast. His punches and kicks moved so quickly that the television cameras of that era couldn't capture them clearly. Many of his movements appeared blurred on screen. For the directors, this became a serious challenge. Finally, they made an unusual request. They asked Bruce Lee to slow down, not because his fighting wasn't good enough, but because the cameras couldn't keep up with him. That tells you something incredible. The action audiences saw on television was actually slower than Bruce Lee's real speed. But that wasn't the only problem. Another challenge soon appeared. In one episode, Bruce Lee's character was supposed to lose a fight, according to the script. Kato had to be defeated. Bruce Lee completely rejected the idea. He refused to film the scene. In fact, he even challenged the other actor to a real fight. The producers tried everything they could to convince him. They explained that it was only a television show, and that he needed to follow the script. But Bruce Lee wouldn't change his mind. In the end, the script itself had to be changed. Instead of losing, the fight ended in a draw. Even Bruce Lee's fellow actors admitted something later. The actor who was supposed to fight Bruce Lee was genuinely nervous. He had no desire to face Bruce Lee. Even on camera, there was one more important thing about the Green Hornet. Despite Bruce Lee's outstanding performance, the series lasted for only one season before it was canceled. Once again, Bruce Lee found himself unemployed. Still, he had gained something valuable. He now had experience working in an American television series. More importantly, he had proven that he could perform on screen as an action actor, confident in his abilities. Bruce Lee began auditioning for leading roles in Hollywood films, but there was one obstacle he couldn't overcome. At that time, Hollywood rarely cast an Asian actor as the main hero. The reason was simple. The studios believed American audiences would not accept an Asian leading man. The prejudice was so strong that even historical Asian characters were often played by American actors wearing makeup. For Bruce Lee, the doors to Hollywood were almost completely closed. He had spent years chasing his dream. But now, there were almost no opportunities left. In his determination to become a film star, Bruce Lee had even closed the martial arts schools where he once taught kung fu. Now, he had no steady job and very little money. At the same time, his responsibilities were growing. Bruce and Linda now had 2 children. He had a family to support. Then someone gave him an important piece of advice. If Hollywood won't cast you, why not teach Hollywood instead? Bruce Lee liked the idea. By now, his reputation as a martial arts instructor had spread far and wide. Soon, Hollywood actors began coming to him for training. Many well-known stars wanted to learn Bruce Lee's unique techniques. It wasn't just actors. Professional athletes also became his students. One of them was basketball legend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Bruce Lee was finally earning a living again. But the next 4 years were far from easy. By now, he was 29 years old. Then one morning, his life changed forever. Bruce Lee was lifting weights during a workout. According to reports, he attempted to lift a heavy barbell without warming up properly. Suddenly, he injured his back. A spinal disc was damaged. The pain was severe. Doctors examined him carefully and delivered devastating news. They told Bruce Lee that he might never be able to perform martial arts again. For most people, those words would have ended the dream. But Bruce Lee refused to accept them. He listened to the doctors and then quietly chose his own path. After taking some time to recover, he slowly returned to training. He followed every precaution, but he never gave up exercising. The recovery wasn't easy. Every movement brought pain. Every workout tested his determination. According to those close to him, these were some of the toughest months of Bruce Lee's life. But his determination was even stronger than his injury. Bruce Lee wanted to discover the true limits of the human body. Day after day, he continued pushing himself. Then something incredible happened. Within just a few months, he made a complete recovery. Some martial arts experts even believed that after returning from the injury, Bruce Lee became even stronger than before. His body had recovered. His confidence had returned. But one major problem still remained. Hollywood still wasn't giving him the opportunities he deserved. At that point, Bruce Lee was known more as a martial arts instructor than as an actor. He had overcome injury. He had overcome poverty, but the biggest challenge of his career was still waiting for him. Then Bruce Lee made the decision that changed his life forever. Ironically, his greatest weakness became his greatest strength, since Hollywood refused to give him the opportunities he deserved. Bruce Lee decided to leave America. He returned to Hong Kong this time. He wasn't going back as a struggling actor. He was returning with experience, confidence, and a dream that refused to die. The Hong Kong film industry welcomed him with open arms. After all, Bruce Lee was no longer an unknown face. His television series, The Green Hornet, had already been broadcast in Hong Kong. But there it was known by a different name. People simply called it The Kato Show. The audience loved Bruce Lee's character so much that many people remembered the series because of him. By now, Bruce Lee had become a familiar face throughout Hong Kong. People recognized him everywhere. Soon afterward, film producer Raymond Chow, the founder of Golden Harvest, approached Bruce Lee with an exciting offer. He offered Bruce Lee a contract for 2 films. Bruce Lee accepted. The first film was The Big Boss. Most of the movie was filmed in Bangkok, Thailand, at an ice factory. The story focused on workers who were being exploited by a cruel factory owner. One by one, workers began disappearing. Someone had to stand up against the injustice. That someone was Bruce Lee's character. When filming was finally completed, the movie was released in theaters. Bruce Lee went to watch it with his family. The film ended. For a brief moment, the entire cinema was silent. Then, the audience suddenly rose to their feet. The theater exploded with applause. Bruce Lee's eyes filled with tears. He had waited years for this moment. At last, his dream was beginning to come true. The Big Boss became a massive success. Almost overnight, Bruce Lee became Hong Kong's biggest movie star. People surrounded him wherever he went. If he stepped outside, crowds gathered. If he visited a restaurant, fans waited outside just to catch a glimpse of him. Life had changed completely. But this was only the beginning. In 1972, Bruce Lee began work on his second major film, Fist of Fury. This movie introduced another weapon that would soon become legendary, the nunchaku. Bruce Lee's incredible skill with the weapon amazed audiences around the world. However, filming wasn't easy. During production, Bruce Lee suffered an injury. Throughout the day, he continued filming. At night, he placed ice on his injured body to reduce the pain. No matter how much he suffered, he refused to let the audience notice. His performance never changed. The second film had almost twice the budget of The Big Boss, and its success was even greater. Fist of Fury shattered the box office records set by Bruce Lee's first film. Now, Bruce Lee knew his value. He no longer wanted to be paid only as an actor. Instead, he wanted to become a partner in the films he made. His name alone could fill theaters. From that point onward, Bruce Lee wasn't just the star of his movies, he also wanted a share in creating them. Bruce Lee had now become one of the biggest stars in Hong Kong. But he wanted more than success. He wanted complete creative control. His next film was The Way of the Dragon. In some countries, the film was released under the title Return of the Dragon. This wasn't just another movie for Bruce Lee. For the very first time, he wasn't only the lead actor, he also wrote the screenplay, produced the film, and directed it himself. Although it was a Hong Kong production, much of the filming took place in Rome, Italy. The movie featured one of the most iconic fight scenes in cinema history, Bruce Lee versus Chuck Norris. Even today, martial arts experts consider this battle one of the greatest fight scenes ever filmed. The fight wasn't remembered because of special effects or camera tricks. It was remembered because of its realism, its choreography, and the incredible skill of both martial artists. Once again, the film became a massive success. By now, Bruce Lee's popularity had reached a level he had once only dreamed about. Soon afterward, production began on another film, Game of Death. But while that project was still being filmed, something extraordinary happened. The dream Bruce Lee had carried for years finally came true. Hollywood came calling, the legendary studio. Warner Brothers offered Bruce Lee a starring role. The project was a joint production between Warner Brothers and Golden Harvest. The film was called Enter the Dragon. This wasn't just another movie. It was the first major Hollywood film to feature an Asian actor as the leading hero. It was everything Bruce Lee had fought for, everything he had dreamed about, everything he had sacrificed for. But making the film wasn't easy. Since filming was taking place in Hong Kong, many local martial artists were hired as extras, according to martial arts tradition. Some of them challenged Bruce Lee during breaks in filming. They would say, "If you're truly the greatest martial artist, then prove it." Bruce Lee wasn't the kind of man to walk away from a challenge. He accepted several of them, and he won. But there was a problem. If these challenges continued every day, the movie would never be finished. That wasn't the only difficulty. There were also cultural differences between the American crew and the Hong Kong crew. Language barriers, different working styles, and misunderstandings created tension on the set. At one point, the situation became so frustrating that members of the American production team considered leaving Hong Kong before filming was complete. Fortunately, someone stepped in to save the project, Bruce Lee's wife, Linda Lee, because she understood both American and Chinese culture. She became the bridge between the two teams. She helped both sides communicate, resolved misunderstandings, and played a major role in keeping the production together. Without her efforts, the film might never have been completed. For Bruce Lee, Enter the Dragon meant everything. He had spent years knocking on the doors of Hollywood. Now, those doors had finally opened. During filming, Bruce Lee didn't always agree with the producers. There was one particular scene that he believed should be filmed differently. The producers wanted to shoot it their own way. Bruce Lee disagreed. Despite those creative differences, he remained professional. He performed the scene exactly as required, and in the end, it became one of the most memorable moments in the entire film. His lifelong dream was finally becoming a reality. But neither Bruce Lee nor anyone around him could have imagined how little time he had left. By 1973, filming for Enter the Dragon had been completed. Bruce Lee remained in Hong Kong supervising the film's post-production. Everything seemed to be going perfectly. His lifelong dream was finally about to reach audiences around the world. Then, something unexpected happened. On May 10, 1973, Bruce Lee suddenly began suffering from a severe headache. Within a short time, he collapsed. He was rushed to the hospital. The doctors immediately examined him and began treatment. Fortunately, his condition stabilized. But the doctors also discovered something alarming. They told Bruce Lee that he was suffering from a rare medical condition known as cerebral edema. In simple terms, it meant that his brain had swollen. Although he recovered, the diagnosis left him deeply worried. Bruce Lee wanted answers. He wanted to know why this had happened. So, he traveled to Los Angeles for further medical tests. While he was there, he happened to meet his Enter the Dragon co-star, John Saxon. John was surprised to see him. He asked, "Bruce, what are you doing here?" Bruce Lee gave a reply that no one expected. He quietly said, "Perhaps Bruce Lee won't be around anymore." It was the first time in his life that Bruce Lee had spoken with such uncertainty about his future. Thankfully, the medical tests brought encouraging news. According to the doctors, Bruce Lee's overall physical condition was extraordinary. His body was as healthy as that of an 18-year-old athlete. The results lifted his spirits. Relieved, he returned to Hong Kong. There, he resumed work on his unfinished film, Game of Death. Everything appeared to be back to normal. Then came July 20th, 1973. Bruce Lee spent that day discussing Game of Death with actress Betty Ting Pei. While they were together, Bruce Lee once again complained of a severe headache. Trying to help, Betty gave him one of her ordinary headache tablets. Bruce Lee took the medicine, and went into the next room to rest. Hours passed, but he never came back. At first, Betty assumed he was simply exhausted. She waited. Then she tried to wake him. She called his name, again and again. There was no response. Panic began to set in. She immediately contacted film producer Raymond Chow. A doctor who had examined Bruce Lee only a short time earlier was also called, but by the time help arrived, it was already too late. Bruce Lee, the man who had spent his entire life chasing the dream of becoming a Hollywood superstar, passed away before he could even watch Enter the Dragon on the big screen. He was only years old. The news spread across Hong Kong, and then across the entire world, like wildfire. Millions of fans refused to believe it. How could someone so young, so disciplined, and seemingly so healthy die so suddenly, very soon? Countless theories began to appear. But what really happened, and what did the official investigation reveal? That's where the final chapter of Bruce Lee's story begins. Bruce Lee's sudden death shocked the entire world. No one could understand how a man who seemed so healthy could pass away so unexpectedly. As often happens when a famous person dies, rumors began spreading almost immediately. Some people claimed Bruce Lee had been punished for teaching Chinese martial arts to foreigners. Others believed the Chinese mafia had something to do with his death. There were countless conspiracy theories, but Bruce Lee's wife wanted facts, not rumors. She requested a full post-mortem examination. When the medical report was completed, its conclusion was very different from the stories people were telling. According to the official report, Bruce Lee died because of a severe allergic reaction. The reaction was triggered by the headache medicine he had taken earlier that day. Doctors concluded that the medication caused his brain to swell again, leading to his death. The police also carried out a thorough investigation. After examining all the evidence, they found no proof of foul play, no evidence of murder, no evidence of a criminal conspiracy. Officially, Bruce Lee's death was ruled to be the result of a medical reaction. Just 1 month later, the film Bruce Lee had dreamed about for so many years was finally released, Enter the Dragon. Sadly, Bruce Lee was no longer alive to witness its success. The film became a worldwide sensation. It completely changed Hollywood. Before Enter the Dragon, martial arts films were a small genre. After its release, they became a global phenomenon. Studios began producing one martial arts movie after another. A whole new generation of action heroes emerged. Bruce Lee had changed Hollywood forever. The film itself was made on a budget of approximately $150,000, but at the worldwide box office, it earned around $1 million. It became one of the most successful martial arts films ever made. Meanwhile, Bruce Lee's unfinished movie, Game of Death, was later completed and released with the help of filmmakers. Although Bruce Lee appeared in only a small portion of the finished film, it became another important part of his legacy. Bruce Lee left this world at just 32 years of age, but his story didn't end there. His only son, Brandon Lee, followed in his father's footsteps. Like Bruce Lee, Brandon also became a martial arts actor. But fate had another cruel surprise waiting for the Lee family. In 1993, while filming The Crow, Brandon Lee was accidentally shot with a real bullet instead of a harmless prop round. He died at only 28 years old. People around the world couldn't believe it. Father and son, both rising stars, both gone far too young. Because of these tragic similarities, many people began creating new theories. Some even claimed that the same mysterious force that took Bruce Lee's life had also taken Brandon's. But once again, the official investigation found no evidence of any conspiracy. According to investigators, Brandon Lee's death was a tragic accident, just like his father. His unfinished film was later completed using movie technology, body doubles, and special visual effects. Today, Bruce Lee and Brandon Lee rest side by side, even decades after his passing. Bruce Lee's influence remains stronger than ever. He wasn't just a movie star. He wasn't just a martial artist. He became a symbol of discipline, determination, and the belief that no dream is impossible. A man who appeared as the leading hero in only a handful of films. Yet inspired generations. Bruce Lee's life lasted only 32 years, but his legacy will live forever. Please like, subscribe and share, and for more informative biographies.